Welcome everybody to another and what we like to think that makes us unique is that we don't just give you coping skills, but we actually can, if you have the courage and the dedication, we can actually get you from just coping to actually thriving. So we have a holistic clinic here in Lethbridge, Alberta called Lifeworks International, and you can find us on Facebook at Lifeworks International, Instagram, Lifeworks International YQL, and email is info@lifeworksinternational.ca, and lifeworksinternational.ca is also our website.
Great. So Dawn and I are internationally licensed life coaches and workshop instructors, and we offer singles, couples, families, businesses with coaching, workshops, and events that help people create more success in their personal and professional life so that they can be more balanced, centered, and create a life that really works. People hire us when they're tired of the struggle and they're ready to start making the changes, and we supply the tools to create an exceptional life. Also, employers hire us when they're looking for result-based professional development programs that create sustainable change in their corporate culture and improve the leadership, which will ultimately contribute to their bottom line.
And if I could just add to that, Lisa, a lot of people when they think about, we're just like increasing the bottom line could be just like, can I get more productivity out of my employees? Mm-hmm. And sometimes an employee would look at that and say, are you going to make me take this course so that I can, instead of making 10 things a day, I can make 12 things a day? Uh-huh. And that's not necessarily that motivating. But really what can happen is that instead of just increasing productivity, you might have less turnover. So you've got happier employees. So you've got employees that instead of staying for 2 years and looking for another job, they might be around for 5 or 10 years, and you're not retraining and rehiring. And so you'll also attract maybe happier people. If you've got a happy environment, it's going to attract happy people. Recognize that positive energy is attractive, and so that might even attract more customers. So lots of benefits to having a happy workplace and having harmony in the workplace.
And if I could add to that, both Dawn and I have run our own businesses our whole life, and the one reason why employees don't stay is usually because they're not happy in management and the environment that they're in, that there isn't harmony and peace and compassion. And usually they'll leave from a job from that, even if they love their job. They need to feel valuable and important to the corporation. So those kinds of things are important, that we teach the skills to management teams to help improve those qualities in your corporate culture. And we love that too, because it's all about people. All our work is all about people.
Exactly.
So first, we will open up the phone if anybody wants to call in, but we've got a bunch of questions that people have posed to us because they can't call in the morning. So the phone number is 403-632-4087. But the one question that people say, hey, we saw your show, what is a life coach and what do they do? What is it really all about? So we're going to answer that question right away. And I'm going to start off with, usually people, it's when they're really stuck and they're ready for a change, they're tired of a struggle. And most people just say, well, I just don't know what to do. And that could be in the corporate world, it could be in a relationship, it could be related to their health, related to money, related to family, or being stuck with knowing how to manage kids at home. It might even be early teens or a temper tantrum 2-year-old. It doesn't really matter because people is our business and the fundamentals are all the same. So what we do as life coaches, we inspire, we motivate, we encourage you to get consciously aware of yourself and these particular areas. We help you identify your strengths and your challenges. We're going to stretch you right out of your comfort zone. We'll help you identify your unconscious patterns, such as how you handle conflict, like if you go into fight, flight, or freeze. We help you with your personality style and what role did you play in your family. We're going to help you discover your blind spots, because that's what a life coach really helps you do, is not just on the sidelines cheering you on and saying, go for it, you're great, you can do it. We have to show you what's the blind spots that are holding you back. Which means it's the unhealthy patterns that are impacting your life. The things that you might not be able to see for yourself. But with conversations and hearing about your struggle and hearing about how your family operated and what you learn about society and your culture, we help you become aware of those things. And lastly, we help you to learn how to love yourself more and accept yourself and be compassionate and understanding that we're all doing the best that we know how to do. And when we know better, we do better. So that's what we do, is we help you figure out how to do life better.
I think lastly, the part two is the fact that we can actually access some of those unconscious beliefs and bring them to the surface, where they can actually almost basically be reprogrammed, and then you start living in a different way. And that's the part that I talked about earlier about actually going from coping to thriving, when you actually start reprogramming these unconscious patterns. That's really a way to make some actually really significant shifts in your life and the way your life works.
Well, and it's really what we talked about last week on our last show, was the limiting beliefs such as I'm not smart enough, or I'm too old, or I don't have enough money, or I'm not lovable. All those things that run through your mind that just convince you that you're not good enough. And we help you discover those and turn them around and create positive affirmations for success.
Great. Okay, one of the things we're going to do each week is we're going to draw from our toolbox, and these are other things. Basically, we've got this big imaginary toolbox full of all these tools and things that we can offer, and that you can take home and use in your daily life. And so one thing we're going to pull out of the toolbox today is the question we're posing is, if you were to think about any time that you are under stress or in some sort of conflict or dealing with a difficult situation or a difficult person, or you're in a conflict with somebody, what is your natural go-to? Is it attack or is it withdraw? An attack is usually just a statement of putting somebody down or blaming them for what's going on or what was said. And the opposite of that, of course, is withdrawing, and that can be kind of mentally checking out. It can be actually, I can't be here, I got to leave the room, or I'm just not going to have this conversation. Those are all examples of withdrawal. And so once you look at that, and you might also recognize, possibly with your partner, you might choose one strategy. You might think, well, I'm safe enough, and in this relationship I feel like if something comes up, I might come up with an attack rather. Yet maybe at work with your boss, your choice might be, I don't want to get fired or rock the boat here at work, so I'm going to actually withdraw from this conversation. Just say, okay, not going to go any farther, and you withdraw. So different places where you have these different dynamics, you might make a different choice. But recognize where you do attack and where you choose to withdraw. And then if you want to go even further than that, you can then ask yourself, where would I have learned this strategy of whether I feel that attacking is appropriate or withdrawing is appropriate? And so that you can look at to your childhood, or looking at your family and say, if I was to think, how did my father deal with conflict or in a relationship? Would I have seen him attack, or would I have seen him withdraw? And your mother, what was your mother's strategy? Would she have been more likely to attack or withdraw? And so it's not about blame, and it's not about, certainly I'm not blaming your parents for the strategies that you learn from them. It's all about it's just awareness, and it's just recognizing that we all make these choices, and we just because of what we learned and what we think is going to actually be beneficial to the situation or beneficial to us. And so once we do recognize this, we can. It's a chance for you to stop and say, okay, somebody just said something that actually maybe triggered me, and this could turn into a conflicting conversation. And are you able to right then just take a breath and say, I'm not going to attack, I'm not going to withdraw, so how can I respond instead of reacting? So how can I respond that's not an attack? or how can I stay in this conversation and not withdraw? And then you're actually responding. And, that takes a lot of practice. And I'll tell you, it's not something I could do just right off the bat. It's one of those things where if your thing is to attack, most times you get triggered, you attack, and sometimes the attack goes back and forth several times until finally you say, okay, enough is enough. And it might be the next day before you stop and say, you know what, I'm sorry. I recognize that I actually, during that conversation, that it was an attack, and I apologize for that. And let's actually have a calm, mature discussion about that situation now. So that's the goal, is to recognize, to get the awareness, first of all, to stop the back and forth of the trigger. Whoever can do it first, great. Again, we can talk about triggers another time too, but I think we all kind of know what happens when somebody pushes our button or we get triggered, or something said that is just something that really kind of, we have an emotional reaction to it. And so recognizing that you usually have a strategy around that, and that sometimes it's best to be aware of it and stop that reaction, and decide how you actually want to respond, so that you can actually have a mature conversation around that situation. Anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, well, I know patterns that people come to us that they struggle with. That is, there's the place where they actually dissociate, right? When they're triggered and they dissociate, that's how they learned how to cope when they were kids. And they actually don't even have memory. Like, they'll completely check out.
That's a good point, because one thing I did want to mention too that I hadn't thought of until you mentioned that was that if you might think back, how did my mom reacted, or how did my dad react? And you may have no memory. You might think to yourself, I have no idea what my mom or dad did in conflict. And you know what? That's probably a very good sign, or a potential sign, that you probably did dissociate, or you kind of checked out when there was stress in the family, or there was a conflict going on, and you thought, you know what, rather just not experience this, and so I'll just go off into my thoughts, into my head, into my imagination, and then those memories, they're there, but they get buried pretty deep in your unconscious mind, and they're not that accessible to your conscious mind. But in time, as you start practicing and doing it and dealing with conflict in a different way, oftentimes those memories will actually return, and then you get a little more access to that. And if your parents are still around, you can always ask them, say, what was it like, and how did you feel? And some parents are open to that discussion, and like some parents are very happy to actually feel like they're being helpful in that way. I think some might shy away from it, and again, are not willing to go back and talk about conflict, but it's certainly something that can be opened up with some parents.
And I find a lot of couples that we coach, that's a big thing for them, because that's where their conflict is happening, where they get into their fights, and their worst fights. And talking back to the toolbox, that's the tool that we give them is actually stop, take a breath, go to your heart, and go, I'm triggered here. I choose not to go into an old pattern, and I choose to be more consciously aware of what's happening, and I'm going to make a better choice. And then a lot of people say, I don't even know what the choice is, right? So then we provide them with the tools to find a healthy choice, a healthy tool to use.
Yeah. And so even if you can't come up with the right thing to say or the right thing to do right at that moment, sometimes even just stopping it so that it doesn't escalate, and say, you know what, I'm really triggered right now, so let's just not continue the conversation now. I need to think about this. I need to explore my feelings. I need to know where this is coming from, and then we can talk about it either later today or maybe tomorrow, or we'll set aside some time where we're actually going to look at this. And again, we can talk another time today. We'll actually talk about triggers, and we can go more into depth about how that whole thing works with triggers and where those emotional charges come from.
And with our experience, there's usually one person in the conflict that's like, no, I gotta know now. Like, they're the kind that's gotta attack. They gotta keep going. I want some answers. I need to be right. That's the program that's running through that. No, I need to be right, and you need to hear my side of the story, and I want you to agree with me, and they want to fight for it.
Yeah.
But we encourage them, like, they need to stop too, and say, if you need time, then I will give you the time. Yeah. Although the part of this that you can't neglect is getting back, committing to getting back to it. and actually addressing it, making a commitment to say, okay, tonight, maybe when the kids are in bed, I commit to a 15-minute conversation. I'm going to come back to it, and I'll be ready. But lots of times, 9 times out of the 10, couples will just say, let's forget about it. It hurts too much. I can't get through that one.
Mm-hmm.
And they just pretend it didn't happen. And they just say, oh, well, he's nice now, so I'm just not, I don't want to talk about it and bring up the pain and the conflict
Let's
again.
not risk it starting a fight again. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
exactly. And just let it pass. But I would say 99 times out of 100, it's going to return at some point down
With
the
a
road.
vengeance.
With a vengeance, probably. Yeah.
Because then you're saying, it was just like last week. You did the same thing to me. It always happens, right? You never listen, and you just start throwing bombs.
Mm-hmm.
And you just get nowhere with that kind of, that's you're just trying to cope through the challenge. So that's one tool that we want to teach you today, is to stop, drop into your heart, take a breath, and figure out where the trigger's coming from. And then with coaching, we help you figure out, right, where it's coming from, where that trigger is coming
Yeah.
from.
And to just touch on one other piece that we'll probably talk about again more in depth on another day, that we'll pull something out, another piece out of the toolbox. But recognize that in some cases, the conflict, or there's sometimes couples, you've been together long enough and you've kind of just given up the fight, and you're kind of like, something gets up, you get triggered, and you just say, I'm not even going to go there. But then but you still don't have any conversation around it, and that's what we call the dead zone, where nobody even reacts, let alone respond. And so now you've got two people that you might trigger somebody, and all you get is maybe just a sigh, and then walk away and go to another room, and then everybody's happy with that. Or, well, not happy with it, but they think they're happy, but they think that's a place of coping again. And so one way of getting out of the dead zone is saying, hey, that actually triggered some emotion, triggered some feelings in me. Let's talk about it. And let me think about it, and whenever, let's talk about it. And it gets you talking again, gets you communicating again, and it gets your feelings out on the table, where you can actually start having some connection in those feelings too.
And within our coaching practice, we have a couples commitment that couples make to each other. So they create a safe zone to bring up those conversations, so that you both know that you're going to handle it consciously and respectfully, and you're going to be compassionate and understanding of the person you're in conflict with.
Mm-hmm. And you're going to do your best not to attack or withdraw with whatever they have to bring up.
And it works.
It helps. It really works.
Yeah, it really works.
Yeah, it takes practice, but it really works.
Yeah, exactly. So the other question that comes up, because it's not a normal conversation for people to say, I'm not really consciously aware of what's going on. It's not even a normal conversation. So another question that was posed to us in this past week is, what does it really mean to be more conscious in our lives? So we wanted to really bring that one up, because it's fundamentally a lot of the work that we do is helping you become more consciously aware of how you live. So what does that mean? It basically means having a growth mindset and an open mind, where you're open to the next available area to grow, if you're in a family or a corporation or a partnership, or even with your children. So the things that really come up when you're learning to live consciously, and that we support you in, is really understanding ourselves, because we often get so caught up in, this is how I do life, and I'm smart, and I'm capable, and I'm right, and I'll fight for it. And we just have to be really conscious that everything that happened in our past, disappointments or traumas in our life, and the limiting beliefs that we talked about last week, they shape us. They shape our personality, and they shape how we do life. And sometimes they work, and often they don't. Living consciously means being grounded and present and aware of ourselves, and be willing to be aware of the people around us, and not just saying, I've got this and I know how to do this, I don't need to change, I've created a good life. But then you limit the people around you, and you limit the growth that you're all capable of having. The next thing, and you can jump in anytime, John, we have to become aware of what's been modeled in our family and the patterns and the beliefs that have come up in our family, and how everything that you learned in your family has shaped you. Learned from your, if you come from an organized religious background in your family, your culture, your society, from your ancestors, everything shapes.
Your peers.
Yeah, your peers as well.
Mm-hmm.
Shapes everything in your conscious world. We help you recognize who you are, where you come from, and how that impacts how you live right now. We help you become authentic by being yourself and being fearless. And we say this often, fearless doesn't mean not having fear, but looking at the fear and being willing to lean into it and learn from it and grow.
I was going to back it up one part to where you said recognizing who we are, and recognizing where we came from and how it impacts our lives now, and recognizing that there's a lot of experiences we had growing up, or any time in the past, as young adults or whenever, or going through certain relationships, and there's times you may have made certain choices or made certain created certain beliefs in your mind around those things, and those beliefs may not serve you anymore, and they don't really even apply anymore because you're out of those situations, and yet unconsciously you're still sometimes living or reacting from choices that you made years and years ago in a totally different time of your life when you had different surroundings and different things going on. So.
Thanks for that. And I might add to that, we worked with people this weekend, and if there's abuse in a home in any way, where people are there to support and love you, but if you turn to the people that are there to love you and there's nothing but pain and conflict, and that's the pattern that gets passed on in your family, is that so you become an adult and you look to an intimate partner and you're looking for that love and that connection, but all you know is pain. If I look to love and there's pain, because that's what you experienced in your childhood. And so that's one area that we help you become aware of, that's deep in your unconscious, so that you can let go of those limiting beliefs and that pain and trauma, so that now you can go into your adult life and know that love is a fulfilling connection, true partnership of understanding and joy.
Mm-hmm. And you'll know and you'll believe that you deserve that.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So living consciously also means expressing your true thoughts and your desires and what's important in your life. And that in a true partnership, like Don and I in a marriage, he needs to know what my desires are and what I want, and
what your fears are too.
Yeah, exactly. And what are my true thoughts? Because an old pattern that I had was I was caught in this place of being a pleaser. So I just want to know what you want so I can please you, and I'm just going to disregard myself because I was trapped in that role that I created myself because of my childhood. And so through coaching in my own life, it helped me break through those patterns and create a healthy relationship with a healthy balance of our needs and desires. Also, consciously living means taking responsibility for how you think, how you act, and how you react with everything that's happening in your life. And it's really finding that balance of, like we talked about, Dawn talked about the toolbox, how are you reacting to everything that comes up in your life? And sometimes more often than not, it takes a coach to say time out, like, let's stop and have a good look at this and see where it's coming from. Where is the core of this issue coming from? So that because really we're only reacting from an old programmed belief that's running through our unconscious mind. And when we can stop that and reprogram it, it totally opens the pathways for love and connection and compassion and understanding. And that's really what we're looking for. It's just when you're looking through the lenses of pain and trauma and dysfunction, you're never going to see what you want. So the next one, taking responsibility for your own life, how we do our life, and taking responsibility. So like Don said in the toolbox, we're in a conflict. I need to take responsibility for my reactions, how I speak, and how I react to the conflict, and own the triggers that I have. And then if your partner does too, or the person, it could be a corporate situation, people at work, you're always going to be triggered by the other people on your corporate team. And figuring out, oh my gosh, I'm triggered because of this old limiting belief that's running through my unconscious. So just becoming aware of those so we can learn to erase them and create healthy new beliefs that support a healthy lifestyle and success.
And if you can learn how to be confident enough to own those triggers, and again, there'll be another day we'll talk in much more in depth about triggers, but if you can own the trigger and actually share it with the other person, whether it's your partner or somebody at work, then they can actually support you in it, and they can actually have some compassion for you in that situation as well, instead of just seeing the reaction and then having a reaction to your reaction. If you can say, I'm going to own my reaction, I'm going to tell you what's going on here, what I'm aware of, and they can say, okay, I can see that, and thank you for sharing, and how can I support you in that? And it creates that opportunity at least, right? As opposed to just taking a reaction, turning that possibly into blame or something else, and then it's just the reactions going back and forth.
Can I add an
Please.
example there?
No,
Okay, so in my family I had two older brothers that were really intelligent, and I hope they're listening because they're great brothers, really smart, very academic, and I was the next one that came along. And I was not as academic, and then sort of everybody in my family, they confirmed that for me. So that was the idea that I had in my head, was that my brothers are more academic than me. And then what I created was, well, if I'm not that academic, I must be stupid. Right? And that's something I decided for me. It wasn't something anybody ever told me. I decided.
Did you say once they said, well, if you're not going to be the smart one, at least you're the cute one?
Yeah.
At least you're at least you can be the cute one.
Oh,
and you've owned that very well.
So then, if I'm in some type of conflict with somebody and they'll say something like, why did you do that way? Instantly, I'm triggered by that I'm stupid limiting belief. So you must think I'm stupid, right? And more than that, I think I'm stupid, right? So that's another timeout, right? It's timeout because that's not the truth. So then I have to go to my inner self and say, that is not the truth. And that's probably not what the person in front of me intended with the comment. It's only my limiting belief that's running, the pattern that's running through my mind that I created in my childhood.
They may have very innocently asked you that question, right? And just because they wanted some clarification.
I think you have asked me that question.
I was going to say, and we're going to get there. Yeah, you're setting me up for the next piece. But yet you hear it in a different way, in a way that has emotional charge behind it. And we need to recognize those places where we have emotional charge behind the things that are said and done around us.
Yeah, so that's the piece that we show you how to take responsibility. So when a situation like that happens, I need to take responsibility for the trigger, because it's mine. It's a belief that's running through me. So it's another timeout spot to really we each take responsibility for the part that we play in that conversation or that interaction. Okay, and the next one, living consciously, is living a life that's true and consistent with your core personal values. And if I might add, we love it when we can work with young couples that, they have to understand their core values. Before you can really understand a committed relationship is knowing, what are my values? And sometimes people go, I don't even know what that means. Like what? So in our coaching sessions is really figuring out what are the core values that drive your life. And if you're looking for a partnership, you need to be somewhat compatible. with the same core values. Else there's going to be conflict. And it has to be a very consciously aware couple that are willing to accept each other's core values that are at polar opposites. You know, so knowing that straight up.
And it's helpful if if they share a lot of core values together, like, and that's very common. That's one of the reasons you'd be attracted to somebody. But it's also very common that there's going to be some pieces that are, like Lisa said, polar opposites in some things, you know, especially often an introvert will be attracted to an extrovert. And so just the extrovert will have certain core needs of, again, being around people and getting energized by being in a crowd and doing those, those outgoing things. And you realize that, you know, the partner you know, will not enjoy those situations as much, and it also needs times to have time to read a book or go have a bath or do whatever the introvert wants to do to get actually recharged by being alone and being quiet and being inside themselves. So that's recognizing those places and knowing where those core values are, so you can support your partner with the core values that are different than yours, and also thrive in the places where you share the same core values.
And we talk about that often in our workshops, is sharing core values and being on a growth journey together. Because when two people come together, even in an intimate relationship, or that there needs to be a commitment to growth, because people are going to grow and change and evolve, and we want that. And I know some of the people that we work with, they say, I don't want to get into this for you to change me. And that's not what it's about. It's not saying, oh, well, that's okay, he's this way, but I'll change him. You know, there's enough love here to change him. That's a red flag right away. If you're willing to work together and change and grow and evolve together, it's an emotional evolution of your relationship too. And I mean, it's easier as women, like, because that's just how we're built. But it's important that, you know, it depends who you're in partnership with, but they're willing to go on that journey with you, so that you can grow and change together.
Yeah, it's actually having the expectation that, and recognizing that you're both going to change and you're both going to evolve, and you want to support your partner in becoming who they really want to be, what their desires are, what their calling is, and you also want to be supported by your partner in the same way, and say, you know, I'm not who I want to be now, but I'm trying to become the person I want to be. You know, I want your support, and vice versa. I want you to become the person that you want to be, not necessarily the person you are now.
Right.
But not also saying, I want you to be like this because that'll make me happy. That's another red flag.
Well, we talked about that last
exactly.
week, is my job is not to make you happy, nor is your job to make me happy.
No. And
we enjoy a happy life together.
Because we're doing what we love.
Yeah, and we're consciously aware of everything in our life, and we're willing to face anything that comes up. And that takes a lot of coaching to get to the place where I invite the next thing, because I love being on a growth journey, being consciously aware of everything, because I want to live an extraordinary life. So I know that takes growth and commitment, and knowing that anything that comes up, I'm willing to face for my own personal, emotional evolution and growth. And the last thing that I've got on my list, unless there's something you want to add, consciously living is accepting ourselves and others for who they are. As much as we know we're going to change and evolve in this physical experience and this experience on earth, accepting myself just the way I am and accepting you just the way you are, and saying, I'm here to help grow and change with you, but I accept you. And I love you, and I'm willing to walk on this journey with you. And
it usually starts with the self-acceptance first, because it's pretty hard to accept the people around you when you don't have the self-acceptance of yourself. So that's the place where we get people to start, and then once they start owning that self-acceptance, then it's easier to start accepting the people around them too.
It's absolutely fundamental. Yeah.
Yes, it is.
You can't, if you don't love yourself, you're going to have a pretty hard time loving anybody else. So, yeah.
Okay, so we just talked about the fact that we have made the commitment that we're we're not saying that we've done some work and now we're happy with where we're at. We're recognizing that we're going to spend the rest of our lives growing and changing, evolving, and facing whatever comes up in our lives and in our challenges and in our emotional growth that needs to happen.
And having conflicts.
And having conflict.
And disagreements.
Yes, because when conflict arises, that's the place where you can look at it and find a place to grow again.
Right, because let's face it, each of us is raised in a different environment with different parents. So we have different beliefs on money, sex, how we treat women, how we treat men.
Parenting.
Yeah, parenting, what kind of jobs we do, what we do in our personal lives, what we like to do for fun. We're very different. We're all different human beings. So there's going to be conflict.
Exactly. So what we want to do every week is we are also going to share one of our personal challenges that that have come up, during the week since our last show. So the weekly challenge that came up is one for me, and it was a place where I recognized, and it's a pattern that I have. I think it comes from a place in my personality where I have some arrogance. And just like Lisa talked about the fact that in her childhood she came up with some belief that she's not as smart as her brothers and maybe not as smart as some people around her, I came up with the belief that I was smarter than most of the people around me. And like I said, she had brothers that were very academic. She happened to be attracted to a partner who's also happened to be quite academic. And so there's that dynamic that dynamic from her childhood has been recreated now in our relationship. And it allows me a chance to see where I am actually have arrogance in places where I feel I'm smarter than some people around me and that kind of thing. And that's not a part of myself that I like, but it's a part of myself that's in my unconscious and conscious mind. And what I find is occasionally that exactly those situations will happen where Lisa does something, I kind of look at her and say, why did you do that? Or why would you do it that way? And I'm thinking that, in my mind, I'm either thinking, you've probably seen me do it this way, why would you do it that way? Or I'm busy and this isn't. Anyways, I would have some view of how something should have been done. It's done different. I asked that question. But unfortunately, it comes across, and I think you can probably back up, it sounds condescending. And even though in my mind,
and judgmental.
And judgmental, condescending. And I know I'm not intending that when I say it, but I know that after I've said it, I can often think to myself, that could have been interpreted as condescending. And so I've caught myself enough times that I finally said, Lisa, it's time for you to start calling me out on that. And because I do try and call myself out on it, but it's never, I still keep doing it. So I need to take a bigger step. So I've told Lisa, and what I want her to do is to actually just say, be nice, Dr. Don, or just be nice, Don. And because then I recognize that I'm not being nice when I'm basically saying something in a condescending way to you, because that's not the way I want to communicate with you. So when you say be nice, then I can stop and I can actually apologize right then and there, and I can say, you know what, I should have said this way, or I can just say, thank you for doing that. It's not the way I would have done it, but at least it's done, And, on the weekend it was just about where things were going as we were loading up the truck. And I should have just been happy that everything was with us. And see, part of my values or my judgment is if things go in a certain way, it's a little more functional and it's easy access and all that kind of stuff. And for Lisa, it's kind of like, as long as it's in the truck and it gets to our destination, we've got a win, right? Right? And for me, well, you can have a bigger win if it's all organized. And so because it wasn't organized the way I would have organized it, I posed that question, why'd you do it that way? And again, said it in a condescending way and felt bad about it. And so later when the time was right, we were driving, and so I brought it up and said, it's time for you to start calling me on this, because I want to be called on it, and I want to be able to apologize for it immediately, and I want this much more in my conscious mind so that I'm not doing that. I want to get it out of my unconscious and get away from that pattern that I have. And that's, again, it's something when we're around our kids or my friends and that, I don't want to be modeling this to my children. I don't want to be people seeing that in me. Me saying something condescending to the person that I love and respect, and more than anything else in the world. And it also empowers you, because it allows you that piece where you think you're not that unconscious part of you, where I'm not as smart as somebody who's academic or who thinks things through. You get to call me out. Like, I've given you the power to say,
yeah,
hey,
he says do it.
I want you to do this. And
it's like the free pass to call him out. And it's great.
And so and I came up with the old thing because I don't want her to call me out in a way that's going to actually trigger me or hurt me or make me actually
or defend myself.
Or defend
right?
yourself. So I just said, just tell me to be nice, and I won't take that in a bad way. I'll take that as, right, that's what I want, because that's what I want. I want to be nice to you, right? I don't want to be condescending to you. So just tell me to be nice, and I'm just like, okay, that's my goal.
Uh-huh.
So that was our weekly challenge.
That was. And if I might add to that, I let Dawn choose the phrase, right?
Because you didn't even like it.
I
You
didn't
said
like it,
For yourself,
'cause-
you wouldn't like that. I said, oh, be nice, Lisa.
Oh, because that triggers me, because that's the pleaser in me, is just be nice, right? And to me, that's not a true place for me.
Mhm.
And so I'm like, I don't really like that, but that's not the point. Don needed a phrase that would work for him.
And it takes me from this arrogant, condescending
Mhm.
ass place to,
Mhm.
hey, why don't you just be nice? Wouldn't
Right.
that be nice?
Yeah, so it's actually empowering for me, because now he's asking me to call him out on a part of him that he chooses to change. He's become aware of it, and he chooses to change it because he realizes it doesn't serve anybody.
Yeah, and it'll bring balance to that place where I think I'm smarter and you think you're stupider. And now you're right? And now I'm saying, I don't want to be come across that way, and you get to say, now I'm empowered to be,
Yeah.
I'm the one that's calling you out on that piece.
That's right.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, and you've given
So,
me that power.
Yeah, it creates that, and it creates balance and equanimity between the two of us.
Yeah, and I do. I feel empowered
Mhm.
that I sort of
Mhm.
have this phrase that I get to use when the time is right. And
And it's part of your own healing too, then, around your piece in that, right? And so
Yeah.
we both get to gain from this.
and then down the road, we'll probably, if something else comes up like that, then I get to choose a phrase, like call me out at when I'm a pleaser, when it doesn't serve the situation. So that could be maybe our next thing,
Mhm.
right? Is
I've already got some good ideas for
oh,
you
great.
guys.
Good.
Great. Okay, so I hope that was helpful for people, and it's just one little small thing,
Mhm.
but all these small things really add up, and they also give you a chance to sometimes tackle some doozies.
Yeah.
Because sometimes the doozies will come up, and if you create enough safety to these little ones, when something really big and really important to your relationship comes up, or to your own personal growth,
Mhm.
you've already got that practice, and you've got some tools, and you can say, whew, I'm really, really embarrassed about this, or this is a real big thing for me. I want to share it, and I want your help in getting through this and
Mhm.
changing it.
And what's really helpful too is like we have 6 kids between the two of us, is telling the kids, sharing with the people in our life, this is something that happened, and this is what we became aware of, and this is how we're going to handle it. Because what we really want to do is model healthy, successful behavior to the people around us, and show them that conflict is going to happen. That we are human beings on this planet. Conflict's going to happen. So how do we get through it in a healthy way? And then how do we learn from it? And like I said before, how do we take responsibility for ourselves? Because it's not just me saying, oh, you were a jerk, be nice.
Mhm.
It was a complete learning experience. So we want to show kids, and the people in our lives, or even in our business, we're all going to be in conflict, but this is how you get through it.
And for the men out there, can I just add that how attractive did you find me when I owned that piece and asked you to
Right.
call me out?
Uh-huh. And he did
So-
one of these. I really need to talk to you about something, and I'm like, ooh, this will be interesting. It felt juicy, right? Because I knew it was coming from your heart, and I knew it was a charge around it, because you were like, I want to be a better man,
Mhm.
and I want to be a better father, and I want to be a better role model.
And I want to treat you better.
Yeah.
That was really what was behind it too.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so
Primarily.
he chose to get vulnerable. And I said that several times this weekend. There's nothing more attractive than a vulnerable man who's willing to
Own his weaknesses, own his faults,
Mhm.
I guess. That's part of it.
and to embrace a growth mindset,
Mhm.
right? And say,
And-
I'm aware.
And ask for support. Even
Mhm.
that's vulnerable for men to ask for support.
Right.
Men often in that independent place, which have spent a lot of my life in that independent place too, where you don't ask for help. You're like, My accomplishments will be my own, and I will handle my own stuff. But when you actually will go to a place of saying, you know what, I would like some support with this. Why don't you help me with this? And then again, just one more way of building a better, stronger partnership and connection.
And you know, the other thing that we're going to do on the show is we're going to have a conscious question of the week. So I'm going to talk about the conscious question right now because Dawn's already answered it. And so the conscious question, so anybody listening, like, write it down, because I want you to ask, you know, a partner or someone in your life this conscious question. When do you feel most loved by me? And what it does is when I feel most loved by you is when he became vulnerable, right? And he said, I realized my actions were hurtful, and what I said you took was hurtful, and he owned it. And he said, because I love you, I want to make it different. That's how I felt most loved by you. How did you feel most loved by me?
Well, before we go that far, I just want to point out one more thing. One of the things that made it safe for me to do that was that every time, even though I would say something like that condescending to you, you would never react to it. You would just let it go. You would just recognize what it was from me, knowing, because you know me very well, and we have talked about this piece of before, and you know that it's something that I do work on, and I'm conscious, but I've never actually asked you to call me out on it. But again, the fact that you just always let that slide and just waited for till it was my time to own it, right? Instead of you trying to call me out before I asked you to. So then, which made it safe enough for me to do it, or made it easier for me to do it that way.
But we have a couple's commitment where we don't attack, we don't withdraw, we don't try and defend ourselves, right? And that's a whole nother topic.
Yeah.
But we have a commitment to each other on how we handle our conflicts. And so we know it's always safe to bring it up, and we know there's something to learn.
Okay, so the question.
The question is.
Well, one of the ways that I like being shown love from you is certainly affection. I'm a very affectionate person. I really enjoy receiving affection. So oftentimes, very common when we're just driving down the road, and you'll just reach over and give me a little rub on the back and a little shoulder massage, and just that physical touch for me is just makes me feel great, and makes me feel very connected to you and very loved by you.
Ah, good. See, and when I know when he feels most loved by me, then I know to do it often, right? It's what he's really saying is more of that, please. That's what I want more of. And really, we are all we want to fill each other's buckets. We all have this bucket, this love bucket that needs to be filled every day. And his needs to be filled by affection and love and hugs and touch and
then I recognize too that where even though I'm a little more introverted and a little more, even just being a man has to work a little harder at expressing his feelings and that kind of thing, that knowing that that's something that really makes you feel connected to me, so it encourages me to be more open with my feelings and share more of what's going on in my head instead of just having it in my head and keeping it to myself. That you really do enjoy knowing what I'm thinking and feeling and what I felt about something, as opposed to just what I said about it, or so you want more of that from me.
It's really saying more of that, please.
Yeah.
Right, which is going to take us right into the next. The next workshop that we're doing is on Thursday, May 23rd, and it's Understanding Your Love Languages, which is all about our conscious question today, is how do you feel most loved by me? So that's the next event we have coming up. It's at Hudson's Pub at 6:15 on Thursday, May 23rd.
Here in Lethbridge?
Yes, and they are great events. They're really interactive, lots of fun. Not lecture style. It's actually very lots of exercises that you do with people and enjoy each other and become aware.
Very simple, very fun exercises. And it's a very man-friendly atmosphere, so encourage, as men yourself, if you're listening, and we encourage you to come, or for the women that are listening, and if you have a partner that you would think would be willing to come. Again, it's very, very fun, and the men have just as much fun as the women at these things, and it's all about just gaining awareness, and there's no crying or emotional work or anything like that. It's all just
more laughing.
It's very entertaining, and you get a chance to learn. You get to interact with different people and do some really fun exercises.
And you can always check our website, lifeworksinternational.ca, for any of the upcoming events that we have. The other thing, tomorrow night is our Wellness Wednesday at the clinic. They are typically free events that we bring in health and wellness professionals for a free evening of information and questions and education on a topic that supports anything that's mind, body, soul centered.
Mm-hmm.
So join us on those. Tomorrow night we've got a class called Emotions and How They Affect Our Body. It's put on by Tammy Nickel. She's one of the holistic practitioners at our clinic. We're looking forward to that. And as I'm going to wrap it up with, in the fall we'll be doing a Conscious Quest. It's a 32 workshop. It sounds like a lot. It's a series of workshops.
Just short little 3-hour ones.
Yeah, it's really short. It's workshops that people come together and you learn the fundamentals about how to become more conscious and connected.
Better communication.
Mm-hmm. On the issues like that we're going to be talking about in the show, triggers, the love languages. There's a couple of workshops on sexual connection.
There's stuff on social media, how it affects relationships.
Mm-hmm. Pornography, how it affects an intimate relationship. There's also topics such as, just better communication and what to do in a conflict and how to create more intimacy and connection and love. So they're open to singles, couples, people who are divorced, or people searching. It's for anyone. And we also have the next one. We also have a Calgary workshop on May 27th, which is asking the powerful questions. So it's a real question and answer workshop in Calgary. If you want to know more about that, contact us. And yeah, so I think we're gonna wrap it up for today.
Did you want to talk more about that we're trying to create more male-friendly places where men can come and get some awareness about what's going on with themselves and with the relationships, just because there's lots of things out there that women can do, right? There's whether it's yoga or it's there's women's circles and goddess retreats, and there's you know more about it than I do.
There's lots of things for women.
There's lots of things out there that women can go and they can connect and they can share their feelings and they can be supported, and there's not very many places where men, unless a man is really desperate or willing, or for whatever reason, there's not a lot of men that are as open to.
Or they've been faced with an ultimatum.
Yeah, or an ultimatum sometimes. Yeah, but they're like, can I go somewhere I can learn, but it's fun and I don't have to go through all these feelings and all this.
Or
this
be
stuff
afraid that somebody's going to say, "Well, you're a jerk." Or,
that's it too, and say, "Yeah, are you done being a jerk now? Or, when are you going to quit being a jerk?" You don't want to. We want a place where men aren't going to be attacked or be thrown under the bus. We want a place where they can just accept everybody where they're at and say, "Can we get some more awareness around these situations?" And then you make the choice to be a better person or make some changes. And if you make that choice just on your own free will. So again, that's one of the great things about a Conscious Quest, is that it's a really fun place for men to come and gain some understanding. And again, we don't want women emotionally outgrowing the men in their lives, because then that creates more conflict and it makes it harder on these relationships. So we want a place where the men can kind of follow along and catch up to the women, and then they can start building these relationships together and have some grounding and support behind them, and instead of just kind of floundering with what's going on and what the women are learning, and maybe the women, they learn stuff, but they don't know enough to be able to bring their partner with them and share it and draw out of them what needs to be drawn out. And
if I might add to that, often as women, we'll come home from an event that, like a sacred women's healing event or a goddess weekend retreat, and we'll actually feel like we're emotionally outgrowing our partners.
And you feel empowered,
yeah.
But at the same time you almost feel let down that you're outgrowing your partner, right? And so
the Conscious Quest is really going to provide an opportunity for men to learn and grow and be vulnerable, because let's face it, we only know what we know how to do, and until we learn something new, You
We
know,
can't be
we
different.
can't we
Yeah.
can't be different,
Mhm.
right? So, and that's why like coaching and our workshops and our evening conscious quest workshops, it just helps you take the next step to consciously living.
Hmm. So that's why we're so excited about that program, is because we recognize it as a very significant need in society and for the people that we know.
Mhm.
All right.
So, we're going to end with, once we become fearless,
Life becomes
Become-
limitless. And we should announce too that next week we're actually changing our time. We decided that we're going to do an evening show starting next week, and it'll be Tuesdays at 7:30 to 8:30 p.m. And we're hoping we get more listeners and maybe some more interaction with an evening show.
all right?
All right. We'll see you all again next week.